2017 was something of a breakout year for Greenlight's Verizon IndyCar Series line. I did the calculations in the last video, and we pretty much got every full-time driver in some form of diecast, minus Scott Dixon and J.R. Hildebrand. I think were the two that we didn't ever end up getting in any kind of diecast form. But looking at it across the board, it's been a fantastic year for IndyCar Series diecast. I think part of that is because of the fact that the aero kit molds are pretty much going to be trash at the end of the year, so Greenlight pushed out as many diecasts as they could. But that's always good for us consumers because we get sets like this one, the podium set for the 2017 Indianapolis 500. Of course, the podium means the top three finishers. That's what we got. This set is one of those things where you think it's kind of like a no-brainer in hindsight, but it's just amazing that nobody did it for this long. The way this set is actually set up, it reminds me a lot of the Micro Machines 1996 Indy 500 set. That is one of the reasons my childhood kind of pointed me in the direction of just loving racing so much. That was such an amazing set, and obviously this is just a home run across the board for collectors and for kids, I would imagine, to get some great drivers, and especially if you watch the Indy 500, to get some of the liveries from that race that were otherwise not going to get produced, such as Ed Jones' orange and fluorescent yellow car. So as you can take a look at the box here, very nice display packaging here. I'm probably going to end up buying another one of these sometime down the line to keep exclusively in the packaging because honestly it just looks that nice. Here on the back you can see the faces of your top three finishers. Now of course Ed Jones technically is from the United Arab Emirates, but sometimes you get that British flag on there. In fact, Dale Coyne Racing actually considers him a British citizen, so it's just one of those things where sometimes you're going to get that flag, sometimes you get another flag. Greenlight obviously decided to make Ed Jones British because, of course, he's half UAE and half British. His mom, I think, is from Britain, and his dad is from the United Arab Emirates, so it's kind of one of those things where you have a dual citizenship, you're going to choose the flag that most represents your interests at that time. I guess the British flag was one that he could stick on the back of the packaging. But these aren't the only three cars we're going to take a look at in this video because we also had some more late season cars coming out. This is Graham Rahal's Turns for Troops car, which we'll be taking a look at. A great livery that had some great success in the second half of the Verizon IndyCar series at the races it ran at. And then, of course, Senpai himself, Fernando Alonso, in the McLaren Honda Andretti car. Of course, this is the 164. We've already reviewed the 118 of this, so we won't spend too much time on it, but it's worth reviewing nonetheless. So, without any further ado, let's get these cars out of the box and take a look at them. So obviously it would make sense, as it's an Indy 500 podium set, to start out with the car that won the Indianapolis 500, of course, Takuma Sato's Ruhoff Home Mortgage's Honda. This is a nice looking diecast, as usual. They nailed it pretty well. It's got all the details and decals of the 118 scale, which I appreciated. Obviously I reviewed that about a week and a half ago, so I don't have to go too much into detail on this car, but again, this one is available in three separate versions, one of which is an IMS exclusive, which is the raced version of this car, which has dirt and grime all over it. So if you want that one, you're going to have to go through the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But for the other two versions of this car, which are the regular single release, which we always get every year, that is not IMS exclusive. And then, of course, there's the 3-pack version, which is this one, which is also not IMS exclusive. I have seen the 3-pack all over eBay, and I would assume it's also in your local diecast shop. If your local diecast shop does sell IndyCar diecast, you can get it there. I've seen these anywhere range between $17 and $25, which is a pretty good deal considering you get 3 diecast that would otherwise cost you about $27 when you buy all 3 of them, $28 or $29 after tax. So let's go in for a close-up. Obviously, you've got the Indy 500 tires, both on the front and rears. There's not going to be a whole lot else to go over. Again, I kind of reviewed this car already in the 1/18 scale version, but it's just nice to see the detail that they went to on the 164, as you can see, I'm just going to try to show off some of the smaller details if we can get a focus in on there. It's kind of hard. There's the Sebastian Bourdais tribute decal. You've also got the Indy 500 tech sticker over there, and then you've got all the stuff kind of positioned in the suspension. So it's just a really nice looking diecast. Again, the number font isn't right, so if that bothers you, that's part of it. But everything else is pretty much in line with where it needs to be. Again, the only thing I kind of caution when you buy one of these is that the bumpers may be screwed up. But then again, in all the examples that I have seen from other people who have bought these and other people who have reviewed them on YouTube, there have not really been any bumper issues that I have seen. So I'm suspecting the quality control is a little bit better because of the fact that it is such a special and probably highly sought after set. Although it's not like limited. Again, you're going to be able to find this set relatively easily, especially if you're watching this video within the first 6 months of it being out. And again, I'm hoping they do this and continue this because it's really cool. So let's move on to Helio Castroneves. So the second place finisher in the Indianapolis 500 and the only Chevrolet aero-kitted car we will be taking a look at in this video, Helio in the FuelRewards.com Chevrolet for Penske Racing. Now, this car kind of is a throwback, and I say kind of because it's not 100%, and they never claimed it was a throwback, but it looks a lot like the Danny Sullivan Miller High Life cars of 1989 and 1988. However, that car, rather than red trim and numbers, that car had green trim and numbers. This one has red, red stripes and red accents. The Miller High Life car had green accents. But Roger Penske is a bit superstitious, so you don't see a lot of Penske green cars out there. However, during the 2017 Indy 500, he did have a car with green trim for Juan Pablo Montoya. Now, this was one of the cars that I was waiting on for them to release. I was actually surprised they didn't have it out by the month of May. This deal must have come together fairly late because usually they have the Shell V-Power cars out for the Indy 500, and especially when Helio runs the Pennzoil scheme, that diecast is right there for everybody to purchase. But this one took forever, and in fact, because it took forever, I never ended up purchasing an Helio Castroneves diecast this year, so I'm glad to finally have one. This car was actually also ran at the Gateway race. Obviously, that was in the road course or short oval configuration with the large front and rear wings. But regardless, this scheme did get 2 races this season. A little bit of a paint error there. Not sure why there's just a huge splotch of brown there. That's interesting. But outside of that, this livery was kind of one that grew on me throughout the month of May. I didn't really like it when they first revealed it. I thought it was kind of ugly. Thought it had a little too much white on the car. But seeing it in the sunlight was a lot better than seeing it under the gleam of some sort of a whatever, but a studio lighting. It definitely looked better in person. The big deal with this car is the fact that, wow, we got some more brown paint. There's just brown paint all over the place on this car. Was the fact that the situation that Helio Castroneves found himself in was the fact that he had a car flying over the top of him at one point, and he ended up losing the rabbit ear on the rear of the car, which I actually speculate helped him a little bit in battling Takuma Sato for the victory, because one of the big problems with the Chevrolet Aero Kit is that while it produced a lot of downforce, it also produced a lot of drag. And I think that actually ended up hurting them as Honda developed their engine as the years went on. And of course, there was an Aero Kit freeze this year for IndyCar, so Chevrolet couldn't develop anything to actually go any faster. That was a bit disappointing from a competition standpoint. But Helio drove a fantastic race, a couple of incredible outside passes on Max Chilton and Takuma Sato. And I'll be honest, a couple years ago, even up to last year, I was not a fan of the idea of Helio Castroneves getting a 4th Indianapolis 500 victory. But after this year, I would be more than happy to see him take his 4th win next year because, honestly, he's one of the best guys that's ever raced Indy in terms of an Indy driver. He's maybe one of the best, plug-and-play drivers. Again, he came up through the back of the field this year. It's one of several times he's done that in recent years, as Penske's qualifying has not been where it usually is. And again, I think Helio will join the 4-time Winners Club. And again, if you watched my Bandwagoners guide way back in May, he's actually on the Alonso Senior path for Indy 500 victories, meaning he's going to be 10 years away from his last win, or 9 years away from his last win, and that was exactly when Alonso Senior got his last win in 1987. Also, as a partial season Penske driver, which of course Helio will be next year, going full-time in IMSA with the Acura prototype. So, moving on to the final car in the 3-car set, and this is probably the car that you buy the set for. So yes, Ganassi's newest driver, and a guy who took a Dale Coyne car to where it really shouldn't have been most of the year. Friggin' Ed Jones, dude. Ed Jones, I said this in a few of my IndyCar Red Pills, but Ed Jones was one of the most impressive rookies I've seen in quite a long time in IndyCar racing. Takes care of equipment, drives the car very fast, very smart, and, I can't say enough about the fact that he has been hired by Chip Ganassi Racing. Now, this is an interesting livery because as you look at it from the side, there's been some debate whether this diecast is accurate or not, and it is. However, it's not the way the car started the race. If you look at this picture, it's not the best picture in the world, but it is of the car on Carb Day, and this is also how the car started the race, with fluorescent yellow bumper pods. Now, what happened to those bumper pods during the race? Well, at some point, Ed Jones was involved in one of the pileups. I'm not sure exactly which one. I suspect, I'm going to have to go back to the video to check it out, but I suspect the crash that he was involved in was Scott Dixon's crash. Both he and Helio Castroneves received damage from this accident, but Jones obviously was much less publicized because he didn't drive underneath Dixon's car, but I suspect he was one of the first cars to come through the accident scene when debris was flying across the track, particularly the whole back half of Dixon's car. And I suspect Jones was the first one to hit that debris because if you noticed, there was actually some damage done to the front of his car as well, a big hole punched in the nose, and that actually damaged his rear bumper pods as well, so that's why they went to these black bumpers you see here. Now, what's also interesting, and I saw Kevin's racing photos on Instagram point this out, was that there are white numbers on the back of these bumpers, and the reason for that is because even though Ed Jones was an Indy 500 rookie, and many people consider him as the official Indy 500 Rookie of the Year, he lost those rookie stripes because Dale Coyne's backup bumpers just simply didn't have the fluorescent yellow 19 on there. Interesting that he did not receive a penalty for that, but it's possible because he didn't have those fluorescent yellow bumpers that the voting panel forgot that he was a rookie and gave the Rookie of the Year to Fernando Alonso. But there is a little bit of a decaling error up here with the Honda logo kind of rubbed off. But as you can see, the orange and yellow all over this car. You've got 11, which apparently is like a gentleman's club. So kind of surprising to see that on a diecast, but glad it isn't on a base because, of course, Greenlight is not Lionel. Valvoline, one of the interesting sponsors of Dale Coyne Racing. IN Steel, Aurora, Be a Scout. It's interesting, this car kind of has some of the elements of the blue and white Dale Coyne car, and then it has other elements of this Indy-only livery. I suspect they went to this to make it easier for the spotters to see this car because of the fact that there were so many blue and white cars out there. Of course, there's even a blue and white car in the 3-pack set, so that gives you quite a bit of insight on that one, as you can just see the black bumpers. Pretty cool how it ended up turning out. So this is kind of technically a raced version of an Ed Jones car. And of course, considering Ed Jones' career path, as this is the Check It for Andretti logo over here, considering Ed Jones' current career path, I suspect this diecast is going to be in high demand at some point down the line, unless, of course, Ed Jones turns into the next Sage Karam or Darren Manning, where he is a one-and-done, essentially, at Ganassi, even though Darren Manning, I think, was a two-and-done or a 1.5 and done, because I don't think he made it through the entire 2005 season. But anyway, as Ed Jones is pretty fast and he's trying to roll away, let's move on to the guy who probably should have won the Rookie of the Year trophy at Indianapolis to the guy who actually did. So yes, the man who was awarded with the Rookie of the Year award for the 2017 Indianapolis 500, Fernando Alonso. Now, obviously, I spent an entire video talking about the accomplishments and the significance of Alonso's Indy 500 run. However, I do disagree with the fact that he was named the singular Rookie of the Year. While I don't discount his accomplishment, I feel like Ed Jones accomplished just as much as Alonso did. Unfortunately, the people who voted in the poll did not see it that way, and therefore co-Rookie of the Years were not announced. It was given to Alonso singularly. I feel that was a mistake. And obviously, if you guys aren't aware, co-Rookie of the Years are a thing that has happened before at Indianapolis. One year, Michael Andretti and Roberto Guerrero won a Rookie of the Year title in the same year. I believe it was 1984. And obviously, while it's not like an everyday occurrence, it is possible within the rules that IndyCar has, or the Indianapolis 500 has, for naming those things. So it's a little bit disappointing, considering that I think Jones was, I wouldn't say necessarily equally impressive, but he was certainly very, very impressive throughout the month of May. And while he didn't have the media pull that Alonso did for obvious reasons, I don't know. I feel like there should have been a little more recognition shown to Ed Jones for his accomplishments, but then again, had the Honda engine not blown up, who knows where Alonso would have finished. He was pretty clearly, when the engine decided to kick the bucket, was really coming up through the field. He had just gotten around Tony Kanaan, of all people. So he was coming. It would have been very interesting to see how it all played out. I mean, if you think about it, and this is something I kind of wanted to say about the 3-pack, was, man, what a great 3-pack to choose, because of the fact that this Indy 500 was so amazingly hotly contested for the last 20 laps, and what a fantastic duel it was between the front-running cars. So, I mean, a very appropriate 3-pack, considering all three of the drivers in it made some serious accomplishments. Now, obviously, this Alonso car, you guys have seen this before if you've seen the 118 review that I did. But again, I mean, it's just a really good diecast. They did a great job. Again, the only differences is there's a Shandon logo missing here and a Johnny Walker logo missing there. There's also the airbox missing, which ironically is missing on every car, as you can see, the Helio car, except for the Takuma Sato. Let me just show you really quick. The Takuma Sato had the printed airbox. All the other cars don't have a printed airbox. That's very interesting. Just a little point out there. But not too much else to say about Alonso. If you want to hear my full thoughts on Alonso, check out my 1/18 scale diecast review, where I jump in much more about Alonso's accomplishments. Real quickly, though, let's take a look at the trading card that comes with it. We'll zoom out here so that you can see it. Obviously, you've got all the Alonso stuff, and then the big old words, all the words, so many words on the back. I don't think this is going to be too hard to find, this diecast. So if you're buying these as an investment, I'd probably say you're barking up the wrong tree. But eventually these are going to dry up. So if you do want an Alonso car, now's the time to get it, because they're only $10. And what are you going to buy with $10 anyway? A Big Mac meal at McDonald's? I'd rather have the Alonso car. Let's move on to the final car we're taking a look at today, Graham Rahal's Turns for Troops car. So here is Graham Rahal's Turns for Troops cars, and the difference between this car and the rest of the cars in this video is the fact that this car never raced at the Indianapolis 500. However, it did race in the month of May, of course, at the Grand Prix of Indianapolis, where it was okay. I almost said Alonso. I think Rahal finished within the top 5. I think he was in contention for a podium at one point, but it just never really was there. Turns for Troops is some sort of a charitable organization funded by Graham's sponsor, United Rentals. So that's where that comes from. It's something to do with the amount of laps that Rahal makes in a race with the paint scheme, they'll donate a certain amount of money per lap. Target did something similar to this in the 90s with St. Jude, I believe it was. But yeah, it's a very, very nice looking scheme. And of course, the great success and why people remember this scheme a little bit better than they would have if it had just run at Indianapolis in the road course race was the fact that it went to Detroit and ran the doubleheader and actually swept the board, winning both of the Detroit doubleheader races for the weekend. The first time that had been accomplished since Detroit was a doubleheader race weekend. So Graham Rahal had some serious success in this car, and that was, I guess, a nice thing. And it's a nice looking diecast. However, of course, this car never raced with a road course or with a super speedway aero kit. Just never did. It was always on the road course. So if you can't get past that past that inaccuracy, probably not a diecast for you. But it's pretty cool that they all did do the American flag end plate there on the rear wing. Very nice looking. Of course, the United States flag on the back, along with United Rentals and MyJack and 15. Rahal Letterman really used up the sponsor space on the bumpers, as they should. I mean, if you got it, use it. And of course, tying this kind of all in to the 3-pack, Graham Rahal is going to be teammates with Takuma Sato next year at the Rahal team. Sato has decided with his sponsors and management team to move on from Andretti Autosport. So we're going to see Rahal and Sato teaming together at the Rahal team, which should be very interesting. Graham Rahal has been very, very fast, one of the faster Honda guys, one of the most consistent Honda guys anyway. Sato has not been. Sato has been fast on occasions. Obviously, he was very fast the day he won the Indianapolis 500. And he was fast at Detroit, taking the pole for the first race, but of course, Rahal was the one who took the victory. So it's going to be interesting to see if some of Rahal's consistency can rub off onto Sato, and maybe possibly some of the raw speed that Sato possesses can rub off onto Graham. I think if that happens, they'll be able to really make their team good. For real quick, this scheme does remind me of something, and I've got it sitting back here. For whatever reason, this car reminds me of a Walker Racing Valvoline car. It just gives me that vibe, as you can see, with the white center of the car and the blue wings and side pods. Just reminds me of that. I hate to bring up this comparison because everybody's going to go, wow, that car is so much better looking than the ugly Indy car. And I'll go, yes, you're right. But, you know, at least aero kits were a development rather than a spec car. Anyway, let's take a look at all the cars that I've reviewed together, and I'll give you some final thoughts. So here's the group shot, all the cars together, I would say from the wave, but it's not really a wave. It's just kind of the late season releases from Greenlight of the Indy cars. So which of these cars are your favorite? Let me know if you're going to pick up any of these. And also let me know in the comments down below who should have been the Rookie of the Year, Alonso or Jones. That'll be an interesting debate in the comments, and one I think will get quite heated between the Alonso fans and the Ed Jones fans. So, thank you guys so much for watching. This has been David Land on YouTube. Remember, if you enjoy IndyCar content, to hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. I am doing so much more in the coming months. So once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.